We have had Ash Wednesday last week. We've had Brian talking about leaning into Lent and about the idea that this is a time where we're invited to pause and consider our mortality. And last week we took that into a sense of living deeply within our values. And just remembering that Ash Wednesday is about remembering that we are dust and ashes, and for us, the universe was created. So this week, the first week in Lent, we start with a story that might seem a little bit incongruent when we think about the idea that we're starting on a journey that will lead to the cross. It's often, I think of the way of the cross in Jerusalem called the Via Dolorosa. It's not a name that invites joy and happiness and dancing. But here we are starting off with this story that seems to be calling us to the top of a mountain. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about all of this and the Feast of the Transfiguration, which classically has come in the church year to begin this period of Lent. But just to remember, we're on a journey which is going to take us into very deep places if we are willing to go. And I decided I'm going to do something a bit different today. I'm going to use a picture. Thank you, Bo. It's an icon, a very famous icon of the Transfiguration. It's by a guy called Theophanes the Greek. He wrote it. We call the painting of icons is writing. He wrote it in 1408. He was the guy who taught Rublev, the guy who wrote... I've got to stop saying guy. How many times have I just said it? Anyway, the artist who gave us the beautiful icon of the Trinity with the three figures sitting around that open table. So he was noted. He was called the Greek because he moved to Russia. Therefore, instantly his otherness is right there. And I was going to use this as an illustration, but the more time I spent looking at it, the more I got caught up in what it invites us into. Icons, if you're not aware, are not illustrations. They're considered windows. They're windows into the soul, they're windows into relationship with God. They're something that invite us to gaze and to see what is happening within us and beyond us. So I'm just going to give you a minute or so to sit and gaze. We've got the three figures at the top with the shining, for those whose vision is not so good. Three figures at the top with the shining Christ in the middle. We've got two figures to either side. Then down the mountain we've got three mirroring figures, two of them, well, pretty much upside down, one of them right way up, but they're all prostrate. So just with that and thinking of the reading we've just heard, see what stands out for you as you look at this picture. And I wonder where you might find yourself in the picture at the moment. And maybe hold that sense or that thought of where you might find yourself at this time of your pilgrimage life, this moment in whatever's happening for you in your world, whatever's happening in the greater world. I'm just going to talk about the picture a little bit and explain it more to you. First of all, the symmetry of it. There is this amazing symmetry, it's almost architectural, and this just kind of picks up how beautifully Theophanes understood relationship as being symmetrical, as having meaning and being, and everyone has their place. And that place is important to the whole. So just bear that in mind as we come back to the picture. The thing that stands out immediately, of course, is the white, the glowing figure of Christ in the middle, which captures that sense of wonder and amazement that the disciples had, as we heard in the reading. The figures on either side, Elijah to my left, I don't know my left from my right, so whichever way we're looking at, and Moses on the right. Elijah standing for the prophets, the revelation of God to God's people, the call of God to God's people to act with justice and mercy and kindness. And on the right, we've got Moses, who is holding the law. And the law, again, God's revelation of self to God's people, to say, to live as my people, that needs to be embedded in every level of society. It needs to be embedded in your legal codes. And from there on, it encourages everybody, well, it demands of everybody this justice. There are also two stories of men who led and who longed to see the face of God and who on mountaintops didn't. So Elijah on the top of Mount Horeb wants a theophany, wants an appearance of God, and still he gets a little voice, a quiet, small voice that tells him to go back into his difficult life and get on with it. Moses asks to see God, and instead he gets put in a little crack and he barely sees the back of God as God goes by, and spends the rest of his time leading God's people, dealing with their whinges and their complaints. And so from the mountaintop, both of these men fail to see God and are sent back into life as muddy and complex as it is. And we have the disciples on the far left. There's Peter with his hand up, hoping to hold on to this moment, this grasping hand. So now we've made it, let's just stay right here. This is where we were heading all the time, yay! The other two disciples are John, directly below Jesus, which points towards John at the foot of the cross, and James on the other side, both tumbled. There is something very poignant about this tumbling of the disciples. They're confused, they don't know what's going on, they're not sure whether this is something wonderful or something terrifying, but they're holding all of these feelings at once. The little insets like caves, don't know how well you can see them, but the one on the left is a picture of what's gone on before Jesus calling the disciples who are coming up out of darkness and following Jesus. The one on the right, however, is the disciples who have heard that Jesus is on his way to his death, and they're standing back like this. They don't know what to do with that information. They're not sure whether this following is such a great idea after all. Is this really a path they want to tread? All of that, all of those different feelings and emotions, all of those different places in the life of discipleship, all held in the beautiful symmetry of this painting. You might just be able to see the lines that come down, blue lines that come down from Jesus out to the disciples. They kind of, you can see them maybe a little bit darker in between the red lines that show the symmetry. there's this sense of the connection, and it goes down and it goes through and it points beyond. It points down the mountain to the base of the mountain. And there is something there about the reality of following in the way of this one who might be a shining figure, but is also part of the darkness of the journey, the confusion of the journey, the failure to see God in the journey that we've had from Elijah and Moses in the past, but the invitation always to continue on the journey. And whoever we see ourselves there, and it might be someone different every time we look at it, we are held there in that beautiful sense of it's all part of the picture. I'm just going to pause a little bit again and let you just gaze. And again, maybe just think, where am I at the moment? Matthew, Mark and John all tell this story. They place it in different places in their Gospels. Luke is the one who ends up with the disciples coming down the mountain straight into the demand to heal a small boy and the inability to do it. So failure the second they come down from the mountain. The others just have them going back into the sheer muddiness of life. And all of it is on the way to the cross. So there is something there that invites us in this journey, which, as Brian said to us, says, let's pause. Let's pause from the rush to get somewhere. I wonder whether it's an invitation to us as a church to just pause. There's been a little bit of a rush to find another minister. There's also the rush of looking after Brian and the worry about how he is and the grief that he is not here with us for his last few weeks. So what happens if we just pause and we think of the symmetry of the picture as being a picture of us and our symmetry? All of us, different places at different times. Sometimes we can see the shining figure, sometimes we can't. Sometimes we forget that once we could. Sometimes it's right there and we just want to hang on to it because, yay, for once everything makes sense. Eugene Peterson says this, that the religious life is lived between the poles of charisma and routine, between the spontaneous, excited outpouring of new life in the spirit and the dogged institutionalisation of truth in everyday responsibilities. And he says that the mature life of faith is lived between those poles, not around either of them. He suggests that what tends to happen is that people try to live life fluttering like butterflies around the pole of charisma, or congealing soddenly around the pole of routine. So what happens when we see it as symmetry and wholeness and beauty that includes all of those things and some of them right at the same time? One of the things I learnt when my husband died was how many completely different emotions you can hold at one time. Nothing linear about it, nothing clear in your mind about it, just a whole bunch of things that shouldn't exist in the same space but do. So Lent is a journey that focuses our life journey. We find ourselves sometimes for a few amazing elevated moments, or sometimes long periods of darkness and all sorts of places in between. We might be full of light and hope, feeling buoyed up by whatever or whoever is feeding us at the moment. Think of Elijah speaking truth to power, or Moses taking us into the thin places of closeness with the presence of God. Who might be those people in our lives? More often, though, we find ourselves tumbling down the mountain or just trudging along at the bottom of the mountain. But in that, the call to live towards more just social practices, towards more righteous politics, towards care for the least, for those who are most vulnerable, the ill, the mentally ill, the poor, the abandoned, the ones who don't make it onto the front of the news reports. Moses has to come down from the mountain and deal with the rabble that he tries to lead. And one of the things I love most about Moses is his words to God, "They're your people, you carry them." Show me a minister who hasn't said that. Confines of their study every now and then. Not here, clearly. And Elijah longing to be rescued from a horrible position where the queen's out to kill him and nobody except him is being faithful anymore. Just being gently reminded that actually there are a whole bunch of faithful people back there. Go and find your group and find the people who will in fact be your support. Peter, James and John are sent not just down the mountain, but into a hostile and dangerous world that will eventually take their lives. And this story is told not for them, but for the communities that come after them. And to remember that the communities that heard this story first, life was about as horrible as it is at the moment. Politics were an absolute schmozzle. The Roman Empire was causing all sorts of problems. They weren't free, they were an occupied country. People were not free to worship, and those who were worshipping were being kicked out of the places they worshipped because they weren't worshipping the way they should be. So let's just remember that that symmetrical picture includes all sorts of things that we might forget, and therefore there's room for all in it. So we might be walking tentatively up from a dark period like the people in that little cave. We might be a bit lost and confused and no longer able to see hope in the path ahead like the people in the other cave. We might be tumbled over at the moment, prostrated with awe, with fear, with a whole mixture of competing emotions. We might be reaching out to grab the beautiful moment, trying to set it in concrete so that we can hide away there forever. But what this icon calls us to do, what this story of the icon calls us to do, is to stop and notice where we are, where this moment fits into the pilgrimage of our life, and what the invitation is in this moment. We might see the story of the Transfiguration as this too shall pass. But nothing simply passes, it becomes part of the weaving of us. It becomes part of the examination of our values, the examination of where we feel led to work towards a better world. And when we allow this to not just work within each of us, but to work between us in community, Transfiguration becomes not a mountaintop moment of unusual exhilaration, but if you have one of those, hang on to it in your memory somewhere, because they're nice places to go back to when you need to, but only in your memory. So it's not one of those, but it's an attitude towards living into growth and transformation that will be transformative for the world around us. That's a calling worth following. I'll leave you with a blessing. May we have the wisdom and courage to stop, pause and take hold of moments, to ask the beautiful questions of both the mountaintops and the dark caves and rocky falls. May we find inspiration and joy in what we learn together, as well as what our own circumstances teach us. May we find the sacred ground in our grief and loss. And may we move ever and always towards transformation into our fullest selves. Amen.
As we prepare for communion, we're going to sing, eat this bread, drink this cup. Please serve and share, but hold off from the eating and drinking. Sorry. Transubstantiation. is a very big word. I will not tackle it all today. I've been here to do this talk twice before, and I got the ones I want to talk about for years out then. So this is less cooking for a long time. I had communion at Macca's last night. By accident. I, frankly, had done a lot of housework and I just didn't feel like cooking. So I went down to Macca's, which is around the corner from my place. Yes, thank you. Kind of, I suppose, the opposite of going up the mountain. I was approached by not a stranger, but by someone who I've never encountered there. It was a friend of mine from work, a fellow teacher who is very determined to make sure we all go to our lunch break on time. Which, in fairness, I'm bad at remembering to do that. I get into the zone and then suddenly it's 3 o'clock and I'm like, oh. But also, she's engaged to, her background's Italian Catholic and her fiance is Greek Orthodox. So she's currently going through the accreditation process for the wedding that's going to happen later this year. So she showed up in traditional dress for that in Macca's last night. I was just enjoying my meal, politely kind of ignoring everyone as you do in Macca's, and then she calls my name, I look up, and she's not at all like I've ever seen her before. And so we sat, we ate, caught up with each other, and it was just very, very weird, but also delightful. So I guess my thoughts for communion here today is that we do communion not just at Sundays with the church, but we do communion throughout the week when we have meals with all the people in our lives, and now we hold on to them. And that was going to be the talk. My friend showing up clothed in bright, there was really, really white veil and stuff that she had on. It was just, I don't know, a fun joke by the cosmos on this week's themes. So yeah, I'm going to do the words of intuition and we'll eat together and drink together. But I want to imagine taking some of that energy out into the week. Next time you sit down for weekly catch up with someone, probably over coffee, which if Jesus had done the Last Supper in Melbourne, it would not be wine. We have many different bonds in our lives, and a lot of them are held together by regularly catching up with people and sharing a drink and something to eat. Yeah. And I guess be ready for someone else to show up transfigured. It apparently happens. Yeah. On the night that he was betrayed, Jesus took the loaf of bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body that is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, he took the cup also after supper, saying, "This is the cup of the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes."
Again, feel free to come and light a candle. So with our pastoral prayer today, I'll start off and I'll throw it open to you because there's so much different stuff going on in our community. First, I just want to draw attention to John as he goes through his continual recovery. And as we think of John, we think of Anne. As we think of Anne, we think of John's family. And understand that our networks of family and interconnections runs deep. And we think of Tim too, as he's recovering from his fall. And the healing process, and with all healing, it's never simple. And remember Julie and her family, as their connection is strong, and as their worry is felt. And we bring Brian into our thoughts and feelings too. And it's really hard. I'm finding it really hard. This is the level of connection is really is hitting home to me quite strongly. And we keep in mind Tiggs too, his partner, and again his family, as we again think about all the different ramifications and that the strength of our network and the fragility of our network. And we think of us too as we go through our transition. And part of that transition is looking for ministers. And again, the ongoing implications of the people that we look at and their future and the impact that has on their family. And a lot of this is around anxiety and being careful as we come into this gentle space of prayer. But there's also lots of fantastic things going on. There's holidays coming up. There's weddings coming up. There's different transitions that we all have and are planning for. Let's just take a moment of pause as we just gently look around in our mind at our community. We hold each other. And we go past that and look at the community of the world and look at all the different ramifications of words and actions and the impact that has on all of us. And beyond words and the power of words and the different meanings words have, we're reminded of a language in our hearts that calls for love and for peace. And we ask the divine to help us strengthen our love and our peace. Amen. And that brings us to our song, Jesus Christ is Waiting, which I will not lead. That might be good.
His neighbor.
triumph too. Where good conquers evil, let me dance with you. Jesus Christ is calling in the streets. You will join my journey, I will guide their feet. Listen, Lord Jesus, let my peace be few. Walk one step before me, I will follow you.
I'm taking over the announcements because it was Rosemary wasn't actually on the roster. I was so used to her having them. So,
I have an announcement.
oh,
Is that an invitation for
it is an invitation for announcements.
Time has got away with us, and it suddenly occurred to us on Friday that it's only 2 weeks until our first quiet day for the year. So whatever that Saturday is, the 18th, I think, something like that. 14th, there we go. Will be a quiet day at the Highfield Road Church. For those of you who've been to them before, they're a lovely time to pause. We will be thinking about the pausing of Lent, but it's a very open time. We'll start at 10 o'clock. I think we finish about 3:30, something like that. I'll work it out. BYO lunch, or there are places to buy food around, but if you could let me know, please, because everyone else in the spirituality group is buggering off somewhere else for the day, so leaving me to it. Thank you. Highfield Road, yeah, sorry.
Where's Trevor? Oh, there. Just 2 weeks ago, you suggested that we had barbecue shapes for communion. No, I just want to say you weren't here last week. We had barbecue shapes, mate, on our table, and Ian and Barb ate them all.
I'll bring them back next week.
Good. I had lunch with Brian on Friday, and it was good to spend some time with him. Brian is okay, but he knows he needs some time away from a whole lot of things to help his recovery. Brian is being cared well for by a number of people in this community, but we're also very aware that you might want to send Brian a text or send him an email, and he'd be really delighted to receive that. Just be aware that he may not respond, but that's okay. But if you'd like to send something to Brian, please do so. If you don't have his email address or his phone number, then just see one of us in the leadership team and we'll give you that information. Oh, and yeah, before I leave, Janine and I haven't rehearsed this, but she's going to say something about Brian as well.
As a sending on gift to Brian, we're going to create a book of messages from all the community at Hartwell. So Sunday the 22nd of March, so 2 weeks from today, will be your deadline to create that message. And you could either do that by giving me a hard copy of that message or sending me an email, please. And
so those in 3 weeks' time?
3 weeks' time,
Well,
thank you.
The 22nd of March is 3 weeks.
Thank you, even better. But don't leave it till the last minute. So your message might be a letter or a note, an artwork, some expression of gratitude, a poem, a prayer, an image, a photograph, just a list of words, things that you appreciate about Brian and his time with us here. So don't sort of feel that it's a burden, but just sort of speak from the heart of a message to Brian. And as brief or as long as you want it to be, but just something that's no more than an A4 page, please. So, and I think I have a Hartwell email address, which might go in the monthly thing that comes out. The well. So that'll be in the well this week, so you'll know the email address to send it to, please. Any questions?
So your Hartwell email address is just your first name, then dot your second name at hartwell.au.
Okay, Janine.Johnston with a T but no E at hartwell.au.
Spelled H-E-A-R-T,
Spell.
.au, not
Okay.
.com.au, just .au.
Which follows for Rosemary, Danny, Merryl, John.
Yeah.
Michael,
Put it in the Google.
Merrill.
So messages for Brian, welcome, thank you.
One more. The day after the quiet day, the 15th of March, is Dish, and
Sunday,
it's
isn't it?
at Sunday,
Yeah.
and it's at Rogerson's in Wadding. So please let me know if you're coming. I'll send out reminders. Thank you.
And for those of mine who could not hear that, a reminder that Dish is at the Rogerstons on 15th, Sunday, two Sundays from now. Yeah. Right. And the last one I was aware of is, I think you mentioned, but just to remind us all that we'll be having that farewell lunch for Brian on the 29th. Which, is this going to happen after the service, right?
There'll be
Yep.
lunch,
Yep.
and I will be contacting everybody to see who's coming, so we have an update.
Okay, there'll be lunch and you will be chased down for your attendance.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Cool.
One more.
One more.
Sorry.
It's the most substantial segment of the whole.
It's an early thing that the high tea for A Future for Kids is on the 19th of April. So that's a Sunday afternoon. It'll be at St Scholastica's again. So put that in your diaries. It'll be another great time.
Anything else? Okay. Yeah, I suppose I did. Okay, so we are coming to a close of the service. Sorry, the announcements knocked my train of thought sideways. We're going to do a sung benediction of Love Will Be Our Lenten Calling, and probably the musos will just keep playing a bit after that because we want to. But I hope that today's morning service has been soul nourishing and helps you to go out down, I don't know if we got a whole mountain here, we got a small hill, back into the messy chaos of the world and take some of that peace and reverence, maybe, determination with you. Yeah. Okay.